September 13th, 1978, 8:30 p.m. Television City Studios, Hollywood. The lights blaze. A live studio audience claps and whistles as 3 eligible bachelors sit behind a panel. The set is bathed in bright orange and yellow, the colors of network TV optimism. At center stage stands host Jim Langer, grinning as the bachelorette giggles her way through a question. Bachelor number 1, if you were a meal, what kind of meal would you be? The camera pans. A man with dark, shaggy hair and a wide smile leans toward the microphone. His name is Rodney Alcala. He smirks, charming the crowd. I'm a banana, he says with a wink. So peel me. Laughter ripples across the studio. No one knows they are applauding a predator. Sitting under the hot lights, dressed like an ordinary bachelor, is a man later called one of the most sadistic serial killers in American history. At that very moment, with his grin broadcast into living rooms across the country, investigators believe Alcala had already murdered at least 4 women. The audience doesn't see the shadows behind the smile. They don't know that 2 years earlier, in June 1977, a 27-year-old woman named Jill Barkham was found strangled near the Hollywood Hills. Or that in December 1977, a nurse named Georgia Wickstead was discovered beaten and strangled in her Malibu apartment. Nor do they know about Charlotte Lamb, murdered in a laundry room, or Jill Parento, killed in her Burbank home. All they see is Bachelor number 1, cracking jokes, perfectly at ease. The irony is almost unbearable. Rodney Alcala, in the middle of his killing spree, was being marketed as the perfect date. But to understand how this man got here, sitting on a nationally televised dating show while leaving bodies across California, we must go back. It begins with August 1968, Los Angeles, 8:45 a.m. Police respond to an emergency call in Hollywood. A Good Samaritan reports seeing a man lure an 8-year-old girl into his apartment. Officers arrive. They break down the door. What they find is Rodney Alcala, then a 25-year-old UCLA film student, standing over the child. She is alive but severely beaten and assaulted. Alcala flees before police can grab him. A manhunt begins. For 3 years, he is gone. He flees across the country, using fake names, enrolling in New York University's film program under the name John Berger. He studies photography, perfects his charm, and polishes the false persona that will become his weapon. By 1971, he's even working at a summer camp in New Hampshire, teaching arts and crafts to children, until 2 girls recognize him from an FBI wanted poster. He's arrested. But here is where the system fails. Instead of life in prison, Alcala is sentenced to just 34 months. He serves less than 3 years. By 1974, he is out, free to begin again. The courts called him rehabilitated. In reality, he was only refining his mask. February 13th, 1979, 11:30 p.m. A dorm room at NYU. A young woman, Ellen Jane Hover, the daughter of a nightclub owner and goddaughter of Sammy Davis Jr., writes in her diary, meeting John Berger, photographer. That's Alcala's alias. Weeks later, Ellen disappears. Her remains will not be found for more than a year, in a wooded area north of New York City. Photography is Alcala's lure. He roams parks, beaches, and sidewalks with a camera slung around his neck, telling women he's a professional. "You're beautiful," he'd say. "Let me capture your look. I can make you a model." Dozens agreed. Many never came home. Some friends and roommates even remember women gushing about the mysterious photographer they just met. They didn't know they were stepping into the orbit of a predator who saw his camera not as art, but as a hunting weapon. By the time of his infamous appearance on The Dating Game in 1978, Alcala had perfected his mask. The producers never knew he had already been convicted of child molestation. Background checks weren't standard. To them, he was just another contestant. The bachelorette that evening was Cheryl Bradshaw, a bubbly woman looking for a light-hearted date. When she picked bachelor number 1, Rodney, she smiled for the cameras. Offstage, she felt uneasy. She later said, "Something about him didn't feel right. He gave me the creeps." She refused to go on the date. It may have saved her life. Behind the forced grin, Alcala's life was spiraling. He was a man who thrived on deception, blending into crowds while carrying unspeakable urges. On stage, he played the charming bachelor. In private, he stalked, strangled, posed, and killed. June 20th, 1979, 2:45 p.m., Huntington Beach, California. 12-year-old Robin Samsoe is riding her bike to ballet class. Blonde hair pulled back, she's just another carefree California girl. Two neighbors later recall seeing a man approach her with a camera, asking for photos. By evening, Robin has vanished. Her mother calls police, frantic. Flyers go up. Search parties form. Parents hold their children tighter. 12 days later, Robin's remains are found in the foothills of Sierra Madre. She has been strangled. Detectives trace witnesses' descriptions of the photographer. Composite sketches are drawn. One name keeps surfacing, Rodney Alcala. He is arrested. His apartment is searched. Inside, investigators find hundreds of photographs. Young women, teenage girls, even children. Many nude. Many never identified. Detectives stare at the piles of portraits, realizing each face could represent another victim. But in 1979, DNA analysis doesn't exist. The photos are horrifying, but they're not proof. Prosecutors take Alcala to trial for Robin's murder. He is convicted. But in 1980, the conviction is overturned on appeal due to technical errors. Robin's family has to endure the nightmare again. A second trial. Another conviction. Again overturned on appeal. Justice feels impossible. Each time, Alcala smiles in court, defiant, confident he can slip through the cracks. As the 1980s turn into the 1990s, Alcala sits in prison awaiting yet another retrial, while cold cases across California and New York remain unsolved. Police don't yet realize the photographs in his storage unit connect to victims stretching back years. And outside, families wait. Mothers wait. They know their daughters never came home. They don't yet know the man who smiled on national television. The man who told a bachelorette he was a banana was likely the last face their children ever saw. The dating game killer was only just beginning to reveal the true scale of his cruelty. And when technology finally caught up, his hidden past would explode into the light. July 24th, 1980, 10:15 a.m. Santa Ana Courthouse, California. The air is heavy. Ceiling fans hum softly above rows of spectators, each one straining to see the man on trial. The Peterson family sits broken but determined, their hands trembling, their eyes red from weeks of testimony. At the front, the prosecutor's voice rings out with sharp precision. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the evidence shows one thing, that Rodney Alcala lured, trapped, and murdered Robin Samsoe. Every detail of the crime has been laid bare. Robin's disappearance, the ballet slippers she never made it to class in, the search parties that combed the hills. And now, as the prosecutor gestures toward Alcala, the room studies his face. He is calm, too calm. His lips curl into a slight smirk, like a man watching someone else's play. For Robin's mother, the sight is unbearable. To her, that smile is not human. It's the face of the predator who took her child. The jury convicts. The judge sentences Alcala to death. Families weep, but the relief is fragile, fleeting. 1984, Los Angeles. News breaks. Alcala's conviction has been overturned. A technicality. The legal system, meant to deliver justice, has opened the door for a killer to breathe freely again. Robin's family collapses under the weight of another trial. They must hear her name dragged into courtrooms, must see Alcala grin at lawyers, must sit across from him as if this horror is somehow unfinished. A second trial. Another conviction. Another death sentence. And then again, overturned. This time, an appellate court rules that jury instructions had been flawed. Each reversal feels like a betrayal not just to the Samsoe family, but to every family whose daughters vanished in the 1970s. For Alcala, prison is not a cage, it's a stage. He begins studying law, representing himself at times, standing before judges and jurors as though he's directing a play. At one point, he even cross-examines Robin Samso's mother, forcing her to answer questions asked by the man who murdered her child. The cruelty is beyond comprehension. June 15th, 1993, 7:20 p.m. Inside the Los Angeles Police Department, a cold case detective sits with stacks of binders, photos, autopsy reports, evidence bags yellowed with time. He runs his finger along case files of women strangled between 1977 and 1979. Georgia Wickstead, Charlotte Lamb, Jill Barkham, Jill Parento. Their cases were whispers from another era, long buried in archives. Now, technology gives those whispers a voice. DNA testing, once science fiction, is real. Old evidence, carefully preserved in envelopes and vials, is retested. The results land like thunder. The samples tie directly to Rodney Alcala. Suddenly, the smiling game show contestant is no longer just the killer of one little girl. He is a serial murderer with blood on his hands stretching across years and states. 2003, Los Angeles. Detectives reopen cold cases with ferocity. Bit by bit, the scope of Alcala's crimes expands. Each DNA match is another ghost pulled into the light. By 2004, the murders of at least 4 adult women are definitively linked to him. Prosecutors move quickly, preparing for yet another trial. But this time, Alcala isn't just fighting one case. His standing trial for a string of killings. July 7th, 2004, 6:30 a.m. Correctional officers step into Alcala's cell. He is older now, his once dark hair streaked with gray, but his arrogance remains untouched. They inform him of the new charges, 4 additional murders, each backed by DNA. He shrugs, as if the weight of so many lives means nothing. Then, the discovery that chills investigators more than anything else. A search of Alcala's storage unit reveals a cache of over 1,000 photographs. Young women, teenagers, and children, some smiling, others nervous, many unclothed. Investigators' stomachs turn as they flip through the images. To them, each face could be a victim, each smile a mask of fear. The photos become evidence, but they are also haunting questions frozen in time. Who were these women? Where are they now? The FBI releases portions of the collection to the public in 2010. Calls flood in. Some women step forward, shocked to see their teenage selves staring back from headlines. They remember Alcala's pitch, "You're beautiful. Let me make you a model." They had escaped, but barely. Others aren't so lucky. Families recognize their missing daughters, and decades-old disappearances suddenly make sense. February 25th, 2010, 9 a.m. Orange County Courthouse. The trial begins. The room is packed with reporters, victims' families, and onlookers who cannot reconcile the man in the orange jumpsuit with the charming contestant they once saw on TV. Alcala insists on representing himself. His performance is surreal. He paces the courtroom. He questions FBI agents with a lawyer's precision. Then, in a bizarre twist, he conducts a dialogue with himself, lowering his voice to ask a question as the lawyer, then raising it back to answer as the witness. Jurors glance at one another, baffled and horrified. It isn't just arrogance, it feels like madness. The evidence, though, is insurmountable. DNA links him to 5 murders. Witness testimony recalls his manipulation and deceit. And those photos, hundreds of them, loom over the trial like a silent chorus of the dead. March 9th, 2010, 4:45 p.m. The jury returns. Guilty on all counts. Rodney Alcala is sentenced to death. Families sob. Some feel a glimmer of peace. Others feel only exhaustion, knowing justice took decades too long. But the story doesn't end there. In New York, prosecutors file charges for the murders of Cornelia Crilly in 1971 and Ellen Jane Hover in 1977, cases that had sat unsolved for decades. Alcala pleads guilty. His trail of destruction is now confirmed to stretch from coast to coast. And still, the photographs whisper of more. Cold cases in Wyoming, Washington, Arizona, even abroad, are re-examined with Alcala's name hovering like a ghost. The FBI openly admits the true number of his victims may never be known. Some believe he killed more than 100 women. Others think the number could be far higher. July 24, 2021, 1:43 a.m. Corcoran State Prison, California. Rodney Alcala dies of natural causes at 77. No execution. No last words for families desperate to hear his voice one final time. He slips away quietly in the dark, leaving behind unanswered questions. For the mothers, sisters, and daughters of his victims, the news is bittersweet. Relief that the man who stalked and killed so many women is gone. Anger that the justice system failed them again and again, letting him live decades beyond the lives he took. Rodney Alcala's legacy is one of deception, cruelty, and haunting imagery. The photographs remain, hundreds of frozen smiles, eyes staring back from a killer's archive. Each one a reminder that predators don't always hide in shadows. Sometimes, they smile for cameras. Sometimes, they win applause on television. And sometimes, the most dangerous face is the one everyone thought they already knew.